Good afternoon, everyone. JagNet Media following Tigray War updates online, April 25, 2021. Starvation as a weapon of war in Tigray, Ethiopia. More than 3 decades after Bob Geldof and Band Aid, mass starvation has returned to haunt Tigray once again. This time, as part of deliberate policy of intimidation and starvation against the Tigray population in Ethiopia. Tigrayans are hungry today because starvation is being used as a weapon of war systematically. Before the war broke out, Tigray was largely free from hunger. Now, the United Nations estimates that 4.5 million people in Tigray are in need of food assistance, 80% of region's population. The Famine Early Warning System Network, a global hunger monitor established in the mid-1980s with funding from the US Agency for International Development, puts Tigray emergency status one step short of declaration of famine, with death rates on the rise. Accurate data from the Tigray region is hard to come by, but a reasonable guess is that 100 children are dying each day, along with reports of massacres, destruction of health care facilities, and horrific gang rapes. It has been claimed that the army is preventing local people from feeding themselves. Fighting broke out in Tigray on November 3, following months of escalating tension between Tigray People's Liberation Front, the Tigray region's ruling party, and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Within days, militias from the neighboring Amhara region had joined the war, followed by the army of neighboring Eritrea, longtime rival of Tigray. Ethiopian Federal Forces took the regional capital Mekelle in late November, but more than 5 months later, the fighting still rages, with most of Tigray's leadership still at large, mobilizing a guerrilla army and broadcasting its defense from Tigray. Human rights organizations have documented massacres of civilians, virtually all of them committed by Ethiopian Federal Forces and Eritrean troops. The most up-to-date compilation of confirmed killings produced by Belgian and Ethiopian researchers includes 150 incidents in which 5 or more civilians were killed in one place at one time. Journalists have interviewed numerous survivors who say they were raped. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has described the campaign in western Tigray, where forces from Amhara and Eritrea are most active, as ethnic cleansing. Whatever political differences may have sparked the armed conflict in Tigray, these are all violations of international humanitarian law, that is, war crimes. If they are deemed widespread, systematic, and perpetrated by a state or organized rebel army, they qualify as crimes against humanity. World Peace Foundation's report documents another war crime in Tigray, the use of starvation as a weapon of war at the expense of the civilian population. As affirmed by the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2417, adopted unanimously less than 3 years ago, this may be a war crime. In Tigray, all of these things have been targeted, and the human tragedy is a man-made disaster. Ethiopian and Eritrean forces that have been loading shops and farms, burning food that they cannot take with them. Water tanks and reservoirs have also been targeted. In April, the World Peace Foundation, a research organization based at Tufts University in the US, published a report alleging systematic starvation crimes perpetrated by belligerents. Ethiopia's government has also been accused of blocking food aid deliveries to civilians. They have been slaughtered farms, animals from plow, oxen to poultry. One eyewitness described an act of petty but mind deprivation. An Eritrean soldier crushed the baby chicks under his foot. Between 700,000 and 2.2 million are estimated to be displaced within Tigray, separated from their homes and livelihoods. More than 60,000 have fled into neighboring Sudan. The aid group Doctors Without Borders reported in mid-March that of the 106 health facilities in Tigray that it had visited, 70% had been looted and more than 30% had been damaged. The campaign deprivation goes beyond immediate needs. It's sending Tigray back to a Stone Age economy in which people are forced to live hand to mouth and depend on charity. Tigrayans are hungry today because starvation is being used as a weapon of war systematically. After the famine of the 1980s, the Tigray government and international donors poured resources and expertise into ensuring that such a calamity would never happen again. Across the region, around 450,000 farmers, 40% of rural families, had savings in local microfinance institutions. Those accounts have all been frozen by the federal government. An eyewitness in one town described soldiers using jackhammers and crowbars to pry open the safe at a local microfinance office. Factories in Tigray once employed 45,000 people producing a range of products including garments, flour, pharmaceuticals, marble and consumer goods. According to the evidence in the World Peace Foundation report, every single one has been pillaged, and what could not be taken away has been burned. Hotels, the ones thrived from a steady flow of tourists, have been stripped bare. Even the kiosks used by shoeshine boys have been smashed, their brushes and polish stolen. Tigrayan farmers are tough and resilient. Most are hiding in the hills, hoping to return to their farms when the rain comes to say they can plant for the next harvest. If they cannot do that, the food crisis will continue and worsen over the next 18 months. The rain comes in June, but the land needs to be prepared in May. Time is short. Today, all the warring parties are putting military and political calculations ahead of humanitarian ones. The Ethiopian and Eritrean government are mobilizing new divisions in hopes of dealing a decisive blow against the Tigray Defense Force, while Amhara forces are planning to officially annex the Tigrayans' land they have overrun. The United Nations and humanitarian agencies in Tigray face a tough dilemma. Their permits to travel and work are issued by the Ethiopian government, which wants to keep the conflict out of the news. Local journalists have been harassed and even killed. And the translators and fixers who make it possible for international journalists to work have also been intimidated. The message to aid workers is clear: stay silent. For humanitarians, charity comes first. Exposing human rights violation must wait. The US government has presented Abiy's government with 4 demands: the withdrawal of Eritrean troops from Tigray, a ceasefire leading to political negotiation, unimpeded humanitarian access to all in need, and an independent investigation of atrocities. On March 26, Abiy said Eritrean forces would withdraw from the region, but without specifying a timeline. Signs from Abiy's administration indicate that his top priority is to finish the military campaign. However, a cessation of hostilities is needed now, before Tigray plunges into a terrible famine. This week, The UN Security Council called for unfettered humanitarian access and expressed deep concern over allegations of human rights violations. A call to action. Starvation is currently being used as a weapon of war in Tigray. Markets loaded, crops burned, no electricity, no water, and banks, humanitarian corridors closed in most parts of Tigray. The international community should demand the following actions by the Ethiopian government immediately. Immediate end to hostile leading to a political negotiation. Immediate withdrawal of Eritrean troops, Amhara militia, and the Ethiopian army. Allow unfettered humanitarian access to all of Tigray and unrestricted access to local and international media. Restore Tigray's destroyed and closed infrastructures, banks, telecom, internet, road and hospitals. Independent investigation for war crimes and crimes against humanity. The World Food Program, USAID, UNICEF, NRC, and other NGOs should coordinate food airdropping to most inaccessible areas of Tigray. Thank you for listening. Share, subscribe, and be kind to everyone.